The defense has rested its case in the court-martial of Oklahoma native Private First Class Bradley Manning. He faces 21 charges in military court, including aiding the enemy. Manning's story of giving troves of classified documents to the secret-sharing website WikiLeaks is well known, but the question of how he was able to access and download so much data has been more obscure. In 2011, the PBS program Frontline set out to answer that question.
Manning had become an analyst at a time of increased intelligence sharing, part of a series of post-9/11 reforms meant to give analysts like Manning more data. Prior to 9/11, information was more compartmentalized or stovepiped.
Stovepipe is a corridor, where no one can get into it. There were CIA stovepipes, there were FBI stovepipes, there were DOD stovepipes.
Manning was assigned to battalion headquarters. He did intelligence work for the unit's commanding officers in preparation for their deployment to Iraq. Manning liked his assignment.
He didn't tell me any specifics, but he did mention that he was consulted by those who were much higher ranked than he was, and it was a source of pride to him.
Manning arrived at Forward Operating Base Hammer in mid-October 2009. He would work with a handful of intelligence analysts in a top-secret facility called a SCIF.
Well, a SCIF is simply a facility that meets very specific, very rigid standards to safeguard the classified information that's stored inside. Anybody who has access, physical access to those networks, has been given a great deal of trust by the United States government.
The two classified networks Manning had access to were JWICS, which contains high-level military secrets, and CIPRANET, which stores hundreds of thousands of diplomatic cables.
There's just been a theory in the military over the last decade especially that the lower you push this information, the more you empower your people, the greater strategic benefit you're going to ultimately see. The platoon and squad level can have an order of magnitude of transformational impact during the war.
There was a flood of information that analysts like Manning would have had access to. Every helicopter and every drone records its missions.
All right, spot on 160. Roger. Go!
Soldiers wear helmet cams. And every day, soldiers in the field file detailed reports of their battles, their encounters with informants, and more. These reports are the war logs.
We're talking about thousands of people in really every military command that there is. There's an office, there's computers with information that allow analysts to access just an absolute cornucopia of material.
Security controls on this information can vary. Manning could bring recordable CDs into his SCIF apparently without problems.
That he was playing Lady Gaga or whatever on a classified workstation in a war zone, I can't speak to that. Obviously, you're not allowed to plug in any unclassified media, and if you do, that media becomes classified at the level of the workstation immediately.
And there was nothing preventing Manning from downloading data. And no software in place to detect unusual downloading activity.
The idea that this guy could download confidential and classified information onto a CD or plug in a memory stick into a computer, and A, it would allow you to do that, and B, there was no red flag that went up for a supervisor to say, why is this guy spending so much time doing this kind of thing? I mean, that was shocking.
In February 2010, Manning was back in Iraq. And within a month or two, he allegedly loaded special data mining software onto his classified workstation and started downloading more documents, including 250,000 confidential State Department cables. Only 12,000 out of 250,000 diplomatic cables have been published so far, but they've already had consequences. A dozen cables from Tunisia exposed widespread corruption there and helped fuel a revolution. and arguably had a domino effect.
I mean, I don't want to give WikiLeaks credit for the transformation of the Arab world, but to the extent that Tunisia influenced Egypt, these cables played some role in the overthrow of the Mubarak regime. And these things are having an impact that I don't think any of us imagined at the time, when it was just somebody handing us a huge trove of secret documents.